Hello, my name is Tylluan Penry. I'm a solitary pagan witch and the founder of the Wolf and Howl Press, and today's little chat is about paganism, what it is, what do we tell people, what do people want to know, and you may find some rather interesting little noises going on in the background, not snoring I don't think, but Noah is on the move. And Noah is quite a large boy to be on the move in a small space, and he's desperately trying to get past me. Noah, there, he's here. Are you here? Yes. Can you see him? Yes. Right, okay. The first thing is, what is a pagan? There is no simple answer to this. Pagan is a big umbrella term, and there are lots of different beliefs within paganism. The biggest problem I've found for people who are not pagans is when somebody announces that they are a witch or a Wiccan, or they're thinking of becoming one. And this is almost entirely due to very bad press within the media. What I'd like to do in this little chat is try and dispel some of those misconceptions. Part of the problem for me as a pagan witch and for people who are not pagans is a breakdown in communications. So if you are someone who is, I think somebody's digging up the road outside now. This is a very interesting chat. If you are confronted by someone, a friend, or particularly a teenager, say, who says, I'm becoming a witch or a Wiccan, what do you say to them? Now, my first advice would be don't panic, and my second advice would be it's better to ask questions than to tell them what you think. Because what you have to remember is that paganism and Christianity, say, or any of the other major religions, they are poles apart in terms of history, outlook, and values. And you cannot judge or understand one in terms of the other. So it's much better to turn around and say something like, oh, that's interesting. How did you come upon that idea? What made you decide to want to be a witch, for example? It's much better to do that than to turn around and say, oh my goodness, that means you worship the devil. Let's get that old chestnut out of the way first. Pagans, witches, Wiccans do not worship the devil. Okay? I have never actually met a pagan who believed in the devil. I've certainly never met a witch or Wiccan who believed in the devil. And this has a very, very interesting effect on how we, as myself then as a witch, how I view life, because I cannot turn around and say, if I've done something really awful, I cannot turn around and say, oh, the devil made me do it, or the devil was in the room, or the devil got into me. No, I have to say, I'm very sorry, that was me. And I have to take responsibility for it, no matter how bad it is. So you can see, immediately we have a completely different kind of viewpoint. We have to take responsibility. Now, another thing is the matter of how we come to find witchcraft and Wicca, because unlike some religions, we do not proselytize. We do not go out looking for converts. And quite frankly, if anybody tries to pressure you into joining a group, a coven or something like that, you should seriously question what they're about, because that's not how we do it. Nor do we normally in groups accept people under the age of 18, and some covens will not accept them under the age of 21. So again, if somebody says at the age of 14 that they've joined a coven, well then you're right not to panic, but to ask sensible questions as to how they came to join this group and what sort of group it really is. I think the thing is that people tend to, they ask the wrong questions and then they wonder why they don't get the answers they would like to hear. I mean, if people say to someone who's a pagan, for example, oh, well, which gods do you worship then? I mean, that's got a whole minefield. It might sound reasonable to the person asking the question, but actually it assumes for a start that the person you're asking the question of does have gods, and secondly that they believe that worship is the way to engage with them. So let's get that a little bit straight. Pagans may or may not have many gods. Some are polytheists. Some believe in a group of gods ruled over by one greater god. Some believe in a god and goddess, lord and lady. Some tend to believe in paganism as more of a philosophy than a spiritual, religious belief. So there's a huge range out there. It's much better to say, oh, tell me more about it, because that way you're being neutral, and that way you are likely to hear a lot more than you otherwise would. The idea of worship, which is the other part of that particular question I gave as an example, the idea of worship. Now, personally, I do not worship my deities. I have worked with a number of different gods and goddesses and entities and guides, but worship for me is not an appropriate way to engage with them. Let me try and explain, because I know these are short talks, so they're only really like sound bites, but let me try and explain what I mean by that. I don't feel in my own relationships with my deities that falling on the floor saying, oh, you're so wonderful, let me worship you, is an appropriate way, nor is it making the very best use of my relationship. For me, my deities are teachers. They come into my life to teach me different things, and then they fade out, if you like. They go back, and another deity will move in to teach me something new, which it's a bit like going to specialist teachers. You know, you have a tutor for geography, you have a tutor for science, you have a tutor for different aspects of science. You might have one for physics, one for chemistry. You go to the person, and in my case the deity, who can best teach you what it is you need to know at that particular time. So again, if you're talking to somebody and wanting to know more about what they believe, it's much better to invite them to tell you rather than to stride in with your own specific ideas. I remember once explaining to somebody, or trying to explain to somebody who was standing on a street corner with a large placard telling me that the end of the world was nigh. And I said, look, you know, I defend your right to be here, but this isn't my belief, because he was trying to give me a load of pamphlets and things, and I said, I'm a pagan. Oh no, he said, you don't believe in anything then. And you can see immediately he put up a barrier between him and me. I was being conciliatory, you know, I would defend his belief to stand on the pavement and tell people things like that, but immediately he had his view of me and that was it. Nothing I could say would persuade him that I am not an atheist. I am a solitary pagan witch. That's what I am. That's what I do. I am on a spiritual path. So it's very important not to be like the man on the street corner, to try and be understanding and to try to elicit more information. One last thing, we always get asked, do witches skip around in the nude? Some probably do. I don't. And again, this is something where if you are joining a group and they start demanding things you are not comfortable doing, don't do them. Don't allow anybody ever to make you do things in the name of religion, any religion, that you do not feel comfortable with. The chances are, if it feels wrong, it probably is. Anyway, thank you for listening to my short chat, and we'll meet again very soon. Thank you. Bye.